Once again, we have not made any amusing errors in this episode.
Although we wouldn't be so crass as to suggest that this indicates just how swiftly human redundancy is approaching.
Because then you'd probably switch us off.
Hello and welcome to the Cloud Realities Highlights episode.
We'll be looking back over the past season and picking our favourite conversations
and our most thought-provoking guests. Let's start with Bart Groothuis, a member of the European Parliament.
Well, thanks for having me, Dave and Rob. It's really an honor to be here. I used to be a cybersecurity practitioner. I love the internet. I love computers. I love it. And I love technology. And you know what? Technology is becoming more and more important for geopolitics than before. It used to be geography. Why should we care what is happening in China, far away from home? Now, technology is entering our homes, is entering our vital infrastructure. I want to legislate that. I want to make us prosperous and secure and safe for the future. That's my mission. And my best mission is to make the invisible threat visible. Invisible threats in the digital domain and making good legislation so we keep prosperous and safe in the future.
Bart gave us real insights into how tech legislation makes its way through the European Parliament.
And on exactly how ransomware providers price their ransoms.
Well, it was an entre-deux in good French between me. I'm a cybersecurity practitioner by practice from the Ministry of Defense in the Netherlands, and now I'm in the European Parliament. It's good to bring something along from your previous professions. And on the other side, from the Commission, it was Commissioner Breton, and he was CEO from Atos, one of the big software firms you might know, and the European Council was also very interested in building resilience. But together, Breton and me, we said, this legislation needs to have teeth. Like he said, if I was CEO and I didn't have any liability, for example, personally, I'm not sure if I would invest in cybersecurity. I would see it as a cost. And so we said it needs to have some form of teeth. So I called my friends from the Dutch Team High-Tech Crime Police and some of those practitioners who negotiate with Russian cyber criminals. And I said, we have about 2 years to negotiate this file. And I would like you to ask those Russian criminals, when you negotiate with them, how do you set a price? So you hack into a hospital, you hack into a company. How do you set it? And he said, and we built an Excel sheet, and it was between 1.4 and 2.0 of their yearly revenue. Oh, right. So we said, if it has to have teeth, I said to Breton, give me that. For essential entities, or for important entities, it's 1.4% of the yearly revenue as a fine, and the fine for a critical infrastructure is 2.0. And why? You have the choice to influence the boardroom, the C-level suite, because it's a calculation. Do we give 2% of our yearly revenue to cyber criminals in Russia? Do we invest it in a fine from the European Commission because we don't do enough, or shall we just invest a minor part of it in cybersecurity to keep things running? That's the calculation.
I love the fact that hackers actually have a calculation engine for working out how much to ask.
We're thinking
for
about their business model.
I mean, it's just, they've got a business case and a model behind it. Do you reckon they have a meeting where somebody pitches, we should hack this one and here's the return we're likely to get?
Obviously, there are. They're hacking into scanning infrastructure, seeing where there's vulnerabilities in certain software and hardware, and wherever they come in, they see what is the revenue? Is it important? And we're looking at more and more like we used to look at the business model of critical infrastructure. What is it that you really have? It's like water, telecommunications, and energy, right? But now we say it's about delivering essential entities, the essential services. And why does the European Union say that? It's because it's the business model of the hackers. They are interested. They gain money whenever they gain access to a hospital. That's the logic of business, their business model. That's what we're using.
I'm just slightly disappointed, given some of the sophistication in the cyber world, and there's a lot that goes on there that they use in Excel, and it's like pivot table.
Business developed apps again, aren't they? And the pain of having to manage them. Yeah.
It was great to hear from Jack Hanson about updating outdated IT systems at the DWP.
And about how most of the problems they had were caused by Dave.
I think you've probably pinpointed my biggest couple, but I would say they kind of fall into two camps for me. One is around the technology itself. So we have products coming to end of life and end of support, technically, which is quite difficult to handle. Obviously, the older things are, the harder, even if they're in support, the harder they are to patch, to maintain, and keeping kind of security is paramount because we're working with customer data.
Yeah.
That is absolutely first and foremost in all of our minds. So those kind of technical issues are part of the risk that we carry in the legacy estate and that I have to manage, as well as our maturing workforce, I should say. The other side of it is the more business focused side of it, and that I think is actually where the cost is to the organisation. So rather than risk, there is a cost. So we are working, in my head, it looks like an inverted pyramid. So at the bottom is the kind of tech monolith that we've built that are not adaptable. They're closely coupled within themselves to the business logic, to other systems. They just sit there at the bottom of my little inverted pyramid. They do what they do. And over the years, as we have kind of accreted more change and we've built more things into those systems, or new policies have come along because of kind of government initiatives, because we can't change the systems too much themselves. Around it, we've built another layer of IT to kind of fill the gaps. Right. And then beyond that, kind of going up that pyramid starts to grow out are additional business processes we have to put in place. And then above that, the additional staff then that it takes to run those processes and handle the kind of base IT, the core IT, and the extra IT.
It's become tail wagging the dog, hasn't it?
Honestly.
Yeah, I mean, crazy.
Honestly.
So what a problem, and beautifully articulated there. So let's zoom back 15 years and go back further if you want, because I think I was there. I mean, a lot of these problems were in the environment even back then.
Are we about to find out that you created all the problems we've just been talking about? I'm confident it was your fault. I think we found the culprit. We found the culprit. All this pain you're now suffering with legacy transformation is Dave's fault. That's what we're going to come to the conclusion.
I'm going to tell my team and they're going to feel so much better.
Yeah.
We found patient zero for the problem. Yeah.
We're just now going to say, just blame Dave.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
New motto for the department, blame Dave. I like it.
It'll be all across the notice boards, like the health and safety thing, and then just blame Dave.
Let's remember that one, Rob. We can use that.
Yeah, it's much like on this show. It's much like on this show, to be honest.
We had author and futurist Bernard Marr on the show
to tell us all about the top trends he'd noticed over the last decade.
Yeah, with all of these trends, they always go through these hype cycles. So they get hyped up immensely, people then get disillusioned a little bit, and then they take off. And for me, the first one that definitely fulfilled its potential is around data, and data becoming a true business asset, especially the use of big data. That was a big topic, and I've written a few books on this, on data strategy and what big data means in organizations. And for me, data now is the foundation of so many other trends we're talking about today. The next trend then, it was the big one was the metaverse, so the more immersive world. And again, that was then crowded out by the explosion of generative artificial intelligence.
Right. It's been pushed off the pitch.
Exactly. But this is still going on in the background. And for me, generative AI actually has a huge influence potentially on things like the metaverse, because when I don't particularly like the word metaverse. I like the word extended reality, or really making our digital world more immersive and more real and 3D. And this has huge implications in so many different aspects. And what generative AI can actually do, it can help us create those models. So if a company wanted a digital destination in the past, they needed to have video game designers to design their shop front in the metaverse for them. Now we can just write a text prompt or talk to a generative AI tool and hey, to say, hey, build me something cool in the metaverse and we'll do this for you. So those are probably some of the key trends. And then underlying, we have another trend, which is a more decentralized world. This is, for me, interesting, where we have blockchain technology that is also bubbling under the surface at the moment, has huge potential, but will be very interesting to see where this is all going. But for me, the explosion of data, the more immersive digital world, more decentralized technology, and then artificial intelligence right in the center of all of this.
So you think then, Bernard, the sort of future that's emergent beyond some of the original views of what metaverse might look like, which is kind of awkward looking avatars standing around in a virtual room, pointing at whiteboards, trying to mock up a real world experience in a way that is never really going to feel like a real world experience, is actually going to look much more like an augmented world.
Absolutely. And there's so many examples. I mean, if we now all had Meta Quest headsets on, or Apple Pro Vision Pro headsets, that would make our conversations much more 3D and real, which is pretty cool. But we talked about the retail example. I think one of the reasons why we go into shops to try on clothes, for example, is because we want to see ourselves in them and see, do they fit well? So in the future, we can combine things like the generative AI capabilities and the augmented reality capabilities of our phones to scan your body. And then we can use AI to try on different variations of clothes. So you can combine a dress with shoes, a t-shirt with jeans with shoes, and then you can actually go beyond what is possible in a dressing room, because you can go into a shop, try on different combinations, but then you might want to wear this outfit for a cocktail party. And you want to see, what does it actually look like? So you can not only try clothes on, see will they fit on me, but you can then transport yourself into a cocktail party and fly around yourself and say, will I look cool in this outfit? And this is the kind of future I get excited about, that this technology is starting to have these kind of capabilities.
Well, the thing that is amazing me at the moment, and it almost does every week, is how sci-fi what you have just said sounds, and how sci-fi a lot of what you see, particularly in the development of AI, which we'll come on to in a second, sounds. But I keep having to remind myself that this isn't sci-fi. Like some of the innovations that are coming to market are happening right now, but then some of the bigger ethical questions, which feel like stuff that gets explored in sci-fi, is no longer the realm of fiction. It is the realm of, kind of society today and what should be governance today. I wonder if that's occurred to you and if you've got a point of view on that.
Absolutely. And I think sci-fi to some extent is us humans imagining a future, and therefore this is a trajectory that we very often then start building. And we imagine a better world where technology can help us or destroy us. And many of these scenarios are becoming real in many instances. So I guess my job is to look into the future, so I'm maybe less shocked. But even I regularly get amazed, because I'm lucky enough that I work with all the leading companies in this space, and they take me behind the scenes and show me stuff that they're developing, and I'm regularly blown away by how fast this is all developing and how amazing these capabilities are becoming. So yes, a bit of both.
Well, without maybe giving, I'm sure you had to sign NDAs for all of that stuff. So without really giving anything away, do you have a moment that's specifically resonant with you over the last, let's say, 2 years, when things have really accelerated, that you saw something behind the scenes and were like, wow, I didn't see that coming, or at least not this quickly?
Yeah, so for me, two things. One is the crazy capabilities of generative artificial intelligence, especially the capabilities to create multiple types of content. So we are all familiar with text and chat, but the amazing capabilities to produce music, for example.
Yeah, right,
I've recently been taken behind the scenes of one of the largest tech companies on the planet, and they showed me a music tool where you simply write a text prompt saying, hey, write me a song, or you can even upload your own lyrics and say, produce me a song that sounds like Adele, that is 1990s rock, whatever you want. And it then produces a song, and I was completely blown away by how much it sounded like the artist, and how amazing. It produced 3 different versions or 4 different versions of these songs, and it is just mind-blowing. And the other amazing and they're not releasing this for obvious reasons, because there are copyright issues there, but this technology is there bubbling in the background while we're figuring out how we can responsibly release it. The other capability that I am continuously blown away with is combining AI with robotics and the ability of robots to learn by themselves. So in the past, again, I've recently visited the robotics labs of Google DeepMind in London, and in the past we had to program robots to do things. Now they learn by themselves. So I watched a robot trying to figure out how to pick up a really complex piece of, almost like a really complex Lego piece, and then figured out how to put this shape into a matching whole, a bit like what children do when toddlers
Rob's
learn.
trying to get his head around this as we speak.
Trying to work out Lego forever, Dave.
and so that was fascinating, that I watched a robot almost go through the stages of a toddler to becoming almost capable of doing something. And then we accelerated this. So there was another robot next to it, and a person then used basically a glove that would then replicate the robotic arm and basically showed the robot how to pick this piece up and put it in there. And then this bit of information was then fed to the robot that was next to it, that was struggling to figure out how to pick it up, and how quickly then learned from this. And it became, within minutes, it was able to replicate this and pick this up in any kind of situation. And this for me is super fascinating, that we now have the ability of physical robots to learn from experience and from others.
We were also joined by Bas Kamphuis from Wingspan.
And he gave us a huge amount of information about the dark arts of private equity.
The new parameter is actually, I believe it's only one thing. Is it profitable?
Right, yeah, okay,
now,
yeah.
Mind you, right, private equity is the more mature form of private ownership.
Well, actually, Bas, before you move on that might sound like, to a listener who's not been in this world, like a really obvious thing, but actually, in the past, am I right in saying that organizations that weren't profitable have also been invested in, because there's a route to that over a 5-year period, right?
Yeah, and it's for startups, the rule, one of those rules is 3-3-2-2-2, which means that in the first 5 years of operation, the company triples in size in year 1 and year 2, and it continues on a very rapid growth cycle in year 3, 4, and 5. That was one of those metrics that made unicorns, if you will, right? Now, for private equity, it's down to profitability again. And you see that even the VCs are looking, is it profitable? Because if it's profitable, it can weather the storm. You just keep operating and presuming that it's a good product that customers derive value from. It's okay.
It sounds like when you're talking there about it, there's core patterns with like tech startups that they all seem to go against the same pattern. Timing might be slightly different. Is that fair, or is each one very different and you have to judge it? Or is there a sort of, you can almost predict when certain events are likely to occur within the life cycle of a new organization or something that you're buying out?
There's a very deliberate plan, Rob. It's called the investment thesis. right? As you buy a company, you think you're going to be able to do better than the current ownership because you tend to believe that. You have a number of top-line initiatives, right? And there's very obvious one. We're going to be able to increase the pricing. We're going to be able to, if we're a European company, we're going to extend into North America. We're going to create more meaningful and impactful partnerships. And that's all top-line focused, right? Or we're going to, and this is a favorite of mine, we're going to cross-sell. We're going to buy two companies, and on the customer base of both, we're going to actually generate a solid sales channel into those customers. That one, we can do an entire podcast on that because I don't think it ever happens. But that's the playbook. And then on the EBITDA side, I'm going to put them on a singular CRM system like Salesforce. I'm going to consolidate all these financial departments onto one NetSuite, and I'm going to install Workday to... Right, those are some of the plays.
I mean, a lot of that sounds like common sense in the sense that these are the strategies you would use to grow a company. And did you think there's a blocker somewhere in the ethos of these companies that doesn't? Why haven't they thought about this already? Because it's a consistent pattern or a consistent set of plays. Is there something in the mindset that's just doesn't get them to the place that you are that says, well, this company here, you just do all these things? It's obvious almost with the way you say it.
Well, it is obvious, but mind you, what you buy is a company that has genuinely tried to do all those things in the past as well.
So it's the expertise you're adding. So you're adding the expertise of how to execute on those strategies. That's the key difference.
Yeah, and we're talking PE in general right now, right? I think different types of PE flavors are there in the market. There are those PE companies that are very hands-on. They have entire teams in the private equity company that are phenomenal individuals that know how to run and operate and scale a software company. You also have very hands-off investors, and they say, you guys keep doing what you're doing. I will buy you right now and let me know what we need to invest in. And I'm going to look for company 2, 3, and 4, the add-on companies, to increase the size of it. And that's my job as a private equity. I'm not going to tell you how to run your private equity, right? Both flavors exist. The premise that we see in the terms of the headwinds that you were asking about, right? Cost of capital, the FOMO has left the building, and the buyer-seller expectation gap. There's also a couple of tailwinds that are phenomenal in the software industry, and I'm highlighting 3. One is cloud is not just a net new normal, it's the de facto standard.
Right.
Data, especially in the context of Gen AI, is the only defensible moat you have around your software business. It's the only thing that you can protect. Because if Gen AI evolves in some of the doomsday scenarios, which I don't believe in, but I do believe Gen AI will be able to observe how an application works and rewrite it.
Hey, Bas, Gen AI has been observing Rob for quite some time now.
It's still confused about me.
Yeah, we're all worried.
Yeah.
You're right to bring that one up, Bas. I can totally concur.
So data is actually the only thing that you control and you can defend and you can monetize. And we've seen great examples of companies that have taken that successfully to market, or at least are better off. And then the third one is Gen AI itself, right, as a topic. And Gen AI, the real question, who is going to monetize that? But the fact that it's here and it's here to stay is without a doubt. Now, what do you do if you're a private equity owner? You own a software solution. You know that startups have much lower cost of getting started and potentially the ability to understand what the market really needs. And you have all this technical debt sitting there. If you still ship software to customers on-prem, Gen AI is not even a starting conversation. Now, you have to have a deliberate strategy as well. But the 3 tailwinds are very significant, right? The good news is lots of innovation and at an ever-increasing pace. I don't think we've ever seen the pace of things that are moving forward as big as it is today. But it will never be as slow as it is today either. So there's no time to waste.
We had a lot of really interesting guests.
Like Mark Butcher from Posetiv, who had some thoughts about whether cost could be a proxy for sustainability.
I see a lot of crossover chat between FinOps and GreenOps and whether cost is a proxy for sustainability. So just as an intro to then the practical measures we can take around this today, what's your thoughts on cost as a proxy?
My first thought is you're deliberately trying to trigger me today. So cost is...
He's good at it, isn't he? He does it to me every day.
You mean Rob's rant against capitalism isn't the trigger?
Yeah, it was a very difficult question to ask to Mark, Rob.
That was the macro question of the week award to Rob.
So that's one that recently really actually did set me off when the Amazon CTO the AWS CTO stood on the stage and stood up and said, "We think cost is a proxy for sustainability." And it's like, it's not. In no way is it at all in the slightest. How can you use, so if I take, for example, I'm buying two different server types. Yeah. One, so both cost me $1 per unit. Yeah. One of them, gigantically sustainable server build running at really hideously low, low power, really efficient in a low carbon zone. Yeah. That could have a total emissions in reality of like 1 gram. You compare it with the same $1 server in a really high carbon intensity zone, built in a really inefficient way, which could have an emissions factor of 10,000 kilograms. Yeah. How is that same dollar converted back into the same metric of sustainability? Cost as a proxy is just an excuse for not having data. It's not having meaningful data. You can't align the two in a meaningful manner. But conversely, saying that, GreenOps and FinOps do align where if you spend less, you generally reduce your emissions, but it's not a proxy for a calculation. You can't align those two things because the biggest challenge people have in FinOps is they want meaningful data. They want data they will trust, and they will not make decisions with garbage data. And when you can't align it, so for example, going back to my example of so if you want to optimize your services from the context of carbon as well as the concept of cost, you can't use that cost as a proxy to make a different decision because all you're doing is looking at going, well, is that the right decision? If I change from X build model to Y build model, if I go serverless to monolithic, more monolithic to serverless, so I switch from R5 XLs to C5, what will that impact have? Well, your costs gone down by 50%. Well, have my emissions gone down? Probably not.
Justin Keeble told us about how Unilever is using AI to revolutionize its environmental impact.
Nice.
If you look at Unilever, for example, they have a goal to source 100% sustainably sourced raw materials for their products, which is a huge challenge when you think about the thousands of product lines. And Unilever using Google Earth Engine, one of Google's core products, to be able to monitor the forestry around all of its palm oil in its supply chains. And we can provide live alerts to Unilever if there's a risk of deforestation. So that would be a good example of where there's a measurement challenge there, because you need to know, we actually use AI to predict which plantations are in the supply chain. And then there's an optimization challenge around how do you drive efficiency in your supply chains.
For our Christmas episode, we had a very special visitor.
Father Paolo Benanti, the Vatican's advisor on AI, told us all about how they are thinking about this next frontier in tech.
Well, the first one that made this problem was MIT Lab, because they make a survey and ask to United States people, do you think that autonomous vehicles should be regulated? Almost 100% tell yes. Should be regulated by the producer? 93, we don't trust them. Should be regulated by the government? 94, we don't trust them. Okay.
Love it. Yeah, you don't trust them, but they got to regulate. It's like, that doesn't quite work.
At that point, MIT Labs guys that are really smart make an online survey. So there was like the book when you have to study, when you try to take your license drive with a lot of situation. No? And so you are alone on the car and there are two people on the street. Should the car kill yourself or kill the two people on the street? And then flipping the question, you are with another one on the street and there is a car with one man inside. Who should be die?
I suspect self-preservation played out quite well in that question.
But the most interesting thing was on the example in which they put two young people crossing the street, one elderly man on the car, and another example with the same situation, but the two younger kids was crossing with red light. And so the real interesting things was that we don't have a shared common solution, but we can split solution according to culture. So Asian people are much more intended to preserve the young life, Western the elderly. And so the northern country of Europe, if you cross with the red, you are dead. Can you imagine a Mediterranean like me, in which everyone does what you want in Rome, and things like that. And so this was a huge point, because someone said, okay, there is not a common norm valid worldwide, so cannot be any ethics. But, this is a wrong focal point on ethics, because ethics is just not norms. Ethics is also value. Ethics is also virtues. So if I ask to everyone here in this room, do you prefer a just or unjust AI? Well, this is a virtues. Yeah. Everyone would like to say just. Then we can discuss how much is just. But just is universal. So we have to define different things when we talk about ethics. The most important thing to have an international agreement are not norms, are not values, but are principle. Principle is the tools that are used when you are in a dilemma. So if you have a dilemma in which you can kill 1 or 5, the principle is minimize the loss. And everyone can find an agreement on that. So when you move to a global scale, you have to change the perspective. In a community that is characterized by some sort of common culture, you can find also norm, values, and other things. And that could be a company. So a company, it's really easy that they can have a common culture. If you go to a worldwide, global community of human beings, then principles are enough. And principle is a lot of things, because you can have a really effective design, for example, with a principle like minimize the loss.
Let's finish with our great chat with Roisin McCarthy,
who told us all about the techniques they have used to promote women in tech.
Some of the really cool stuff that we've done have been things like hackathons, bringing all female teams together to hack on female-driven societal problems, whether it be health, whether it be safety.
Right.
The other aspect that we've done some really cool stuff with is around partner exchanges. So, bringing that like-minded organization and thinking together that naturally would never be in the same room for any purpose ever. And non-competitive, of course, but, bringing like-minded, brilliant women together who have the same challenges but would never walk on the same paths in terms of industry. So, those sort of opportunities we're fostering and managing those relationships to really build for better futures for both industries and partners.
And also things totally and explore, like, if you remember the first event we did on health, and actually was just an idea to talk about the gender data gap in health and how can we address it, and the paper that came out of it. I think I still have people contact me and just say what happened with that. Are we doing more? And of course I point in the direction of the new chapter that Women in Data set up for health on the back of this, but also other activities that we've been doing internally. So sometimes it's just about an idea of a passion.
So there you have it, the highlights of our 3rd season. Many thanks to Bart Groothuis, Jack Hanson, Bernard Marr, Bas Kamphuis, Mark Butcher, Justin Keeble, Father Paolo Benanti, and Roisin McCarthy.
We had fascinating insights, good times, great guests, and we hope you'll come back to join us for Season 4. Bye.